I am here as ever with Laure Jackson, which is really exciting. My voice is improving, having had a cold. But hello, Anne.
Hello, it's lovely to see you again.
Yes, how are you doing? How's all the world of change?
Oh, the world of change! It's all happening all over the place. Yes, children and work and life and husbands and yes, all kinds of things happening. But yeah, all good.
Change is good. I mean, it can overwhelm us, but it can be good.
Yeah.
Right. Let me start off with a message that came in from our last one. I recently tried your sound therapy idea with my adult son who has certain issues with certain vegetables due to long-running health issues. The thought of eating broccoli would be really hard as he linked it to having been sick due to the taste and smell. So I got him to try a tiny bit and then increasing how much he had a little bit at a time. And he found himself able to eat a whole sprig of broccoli for the first time in 8 months.
Yay. That's brilliant.
Little bits and pieces. That's
brilliant. That is definitely one way, and it's a beautiful way, and it's stress-free, and you have to go. The beauty of that is that you are working in partnership with the individual, and so nobody's forcing anything on anybody. We want that internal drive, we want that internal motivation, but we do want to help them do things more than they have done before. When it'd be very easy just to avoid something and say, right, I'm never going to touch broccoli or whatever it is again. So that's a really lovely desensitization and a very honouring way of doing something. And well done, that person. Well done them.
That's good. I was thinking about therapy that I was on when I was. They were taking me through a traumatic event, and they don't just like land you in it. They just take you a little bit and a little bit and a little bit until you are the master of your memory, effectively. And I guess it's the same thing that we're talking about here, isn't it, with the senses?
Yeah, because there's so much that because of that overreactivity, that rapid flight, fight, fright kind of response. That's, I think, with every single therapy, regardless of where you're coming at it from, emotionally, sensory, physical, or otherwise, you just want to protect the system so that we don't get to that. Because if you get to that point, it's very hard to do anything meaningful and to do anything purposeful. So it's gently, or it's big steps. If they can cope without us setting off that reaction, then it's gently steps. And that's really nice.
Excellent. I was just thinking about all the stuff that's going through, because you've got all these changes in your home, your office, all the stuff that's going on. So I'm guessing for you too. I mean, you're no different to anybody else just because you know about sensory things. You still have to apply what you know to your own situation. So how are you managing to do that?
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah, I am definitely being very much more conscious of me having physical exercise. And I recently found this year, I found the sauna. So my new best friend is the sauna, because what it does, I love being on my phone. I love communicating. If something comes in and I respond to it, and I'm a very responsive type of person, and there's always something to build in the business. But this morning had more information about, like, I've got one son who's a drummer, and there's more openings that way. I've got another son who's coming to work with me. There's my family moving in. My parents are moving in with us. There's kind of like lots happening all over the place, and I need to be on the ball. And I love that normally, that it keeps me inspired and keeps me motivated, doing lots of things and juggling lots of balls. But I have been particularly aware that I need time to not do anything. And actually going for a swim and going for a sauna fits that phenomenally. I was trying to get to the gym beforehand just because it's good to be fit, but I have never enjoyed a swim and a sauna as much, because especially in the sauna, there's nothing. It's beautiful heat. I could just rest. And there's nothing else. It's quiet, unless some folks are chatting, but it's just really quiet. It is hot. It is soothing, for me anyway, maybe not for everybody. But those are my, so 3 times a week I am trying to go, just to get those times, because it's really, really important. Yeah. Quiet times, it's spiritually, but also that physical retreat. For 15 minutes at a time, and then I go and plunge myself in a cold pool. So it's just like, woo, yeah, and then go for a swim. So it's healthy practices. Those sensory healthy practices are what we need to include in every day. So that I need to be fit. I need to be well to be able to cope and work well and be a good wife and mum at the same time. I do need to protect myself. They talk about self-love, don't they? I'm not quite sure. Self-care. It just seems the right thing to do, really. It's just look after yourself, whatever that means. And I know from a sensory perspective, but also we have actually, it's an interesting point. We have lots of headphones in our house because the boys, I have 3 boys. My boys know that I like to think. Actually, we did touch upon it quite early on, I think, in one of our earlier podcasts, that I really like space to think. So they go around the house if they want to listen to music. It's nice that they're the ones. Otherwise, I could wear ear defenders, I suppose, or noise cancelling headphones. But it works for them because then they can carry their music around with them as they go from place to place or work a bit and do a bit of this. But auditory wise, it is important for me. I'm not overreactive in any way, shape, or form. I do love a good noise or chat or anything else, but I do like to think. So.
But there is something different, isn't there, between not doing something and doing nothing? Because although it sounds the same, there is a big difference between us just not doing stuff as opposed to doing something to rest. That's the passive and the active resting, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Right.
We need to find that right balance.
Yeah, and it's important. It's good to do nothing, and it's good to do something where that something is nothing, and it's a deliberate act rather than just sitting on a chair and not doing something, but actually doing something where we can not be, not give, I suppose, it's like anything else. We need to sleep, but we need to give our senses a bit of a rest as well.
Yeah. And I think I remember when I was growing up, there was nothing I liked more than if I could be about 2 hours in my bedroom, just to think, just to sit and not have to do anything. I was just really content, really happy. And just allow my mind to think. And I think that's, when folks aren't at peace with themselves, it's a really hard place to be, to actually have nothing and to have no distractions and to have no other sensory input, whether it be visual, where you're watching something or hearing something or something else is always keeping your brain active. And it's really important that we have those rest times where we are not using external stimuli to keep us, attentive to something, that we find that peace and that contentment so that we can just be. I used to very much be a human doing. I suppose in many ways I still am. I do lots of things, but I really enjoy just being where I can. It's really important.
No, I understand that. I really do. I spent 3 days sitting in a chair doing nothing apart from not feeling great. And when I have a bath, I was like, I really don't want a bath. A bath for me is one of the worst things I can do because I'm just bored, senseless. It's like, can I not have a shower and do the same thing? Because then I can get on with my day. I think like you, I don't like to just be. It's not natural for me to just sit.
I think having a cold and going for a bath, that's not nice because you have to get cold. You have to like undress yourself. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. The bath might be nice, but the process of getting in there would not be worth it for me. It's like, no. Not happening. No, and
also sitting there doing nothing. I just, it's not a happy place for me. If I'm having a bath, it's because there's something really bad. It's the only reason why. Right, let's move on to a question. Question for Laure Jackson. Can sensory issues develop over time? Can you, as an adult, for example, suddenly find yourself experiencing sensory issues? And an extra, do we know what would trigger that?
Big question, very good question. The types of sensory processing that those of us who are advanced practitioners in sensory integration, the pure ones are those that have developed from birth, because it's much more, it's just really easy to treat, as it were. We just know what's happening, what needs yet to develop, what needs yet to integrate, and therefore we can go in and deal with those things straight away. Especially if there's no other brain damage that we're aware of. It really is a processing issue, and let's just get it processing better. So that's super. But things do happen over time, and our senses are affected by various things. Age naturally is going to things degenerate, so that the nerve impulses change. We might be more sensitive or more susceptible with the things that we eat, with the activities that we do. The growing old process does change things the same way that hormones do. So depending if that was a female or a male, we might find, especially over menopause or depending whenever they are, or certain times of the month for females, that there'll be more sensitivity to certain things. And that's a hormonal basis. Sometimes it's an age basis. So yes, things do change. Sometimes for the better, because you actually get less sensitive about certain things. Or I think, as we remembered before, our concept of time often can improve because we are more experienced with things, and so time becomes more of an issue unless we start degenerating and cells don't function in the way that they did do before. So yeah, some things will improve and some things will deteriorate, but the reasons behind it are varied and definitely many.
Okay, so it would not be an abnormal thing for someone in their 30s, 40s, 50s to find themselves with some. I mean, we understand that, I suppose, conversely with caffeine. I was chatting with Dr. Scott the other day talking about caffeine, and he was saying about how as we get older, our tolerance to caffeine changes, and actually all of a sudden, perhaps you might find yourself age 50. Now you can't have that caffeinated coffee at 6 o'clock in the evening because it keeps you awake. So if it happens just from caffeine, then it shouldn't be any harder for us to understand that can happen with the senses.
Yeah, and that's where that's why it's sensory health for all, for sure.
Cool. Okay. Now you said you had a testimony from a family, which I thought would be lovely to hear.
Yeah, well, I just had some lovely. Naturally, I'm talking with families every day. There are set weekly coachings that we have, but have these opportunities to chat with families and with teachers during the week as I go around the schools. This is a combination. Well, I had a lovely one last week, and I was thinking about that at the same time and thinking, I just love it when things work, when the families feel equipped and empowered, which is what hopefully I'm aiming to do. But when you actually see it in practice, it's just like, yes, this really works. And one of the parents, but both of them have opened their home to children to adopt. I think that is just gorgeous. The calling and often the needs of a child who's adopted is more in a whole variety of different ways. But these ones, I mean, the first family was saying that it was just an absolute nightmare when they got in touch. It was the worst thing. They were close to breakdown. The family was not going to, wasn't going to survive. And I was like the last hope, because it was just awful. You know, the kicking and the screaming and the aggression and all the rest of it. And they were just thinking, I can't do this. And the dad was got to go. So, but last week, hearing that the dad now is saying that he's living the life that he always hoped he would do. That actually over this period of time, the playing that he can now do with his son, the building that he can now do, things that was just never going to happen, some time back is now. So just to hear that phrase that, just doing the things I always wanted to do as a dad. And the mum's just delighted that the dad's just delighted and able to relax. And the other one was like just yesterday speaking with family where 2 years ago they were telling me, I wasn't involved 2 years ago, but 2 years ago they were telling me over fireworks, over bonfire night, just that another son, just that their son completely had one of the worst experiences ever and was totally freaked out by the whole thing, and ran into a wall, ran into a car, just complete. It was also another kicker screamer, still is to a point, but we've managed to change so much of that over the time. And then so last bonfire night, they tried certain things. They got a little bit. It was more successful. So it's about, right, okay, what do we need to change for this year? And the report back yesterday was they just had a phenomenal time. They didn't go anywhere near an actual bonfire night themselves. They made sure that they'd driven somewhere completely differently. They had the headphones, they had the chewies, they had the drinks, they had the music, they had whatever he wanted to wear, that the windows were up. They just changed the whole environment, but they made sure they could see, because he loves the visual stimulation. And they knew that he'd love the fireworks if they could just actually get to tolerate everything else and cope with it. And they said they just had one of the most special family nights that they've had for years. So it was like, thank you. And it was all because they had understood his sensory thumbprint, the boy's sensory thumbprint, what his needs were, what they needed to protect him from a sensory perspective, and what would really nurture him and feed into him being in a good place, so that he could then tolerate the fireworks. So from like just 2 years ago to now, and that's it. Once you've had that experience, and once you've learned all the different things that you need to put in place, including what they were doing with him during the day to make sure that his nervous system was put in a place that was happy. But they had a family outing, which was something that mum and dad wanted to do. Yeah. Oh, and then we had another family who managed to get a night out for the first time ever. Great. So, and again, just those little things. Normal family life is basically, people just want a normal family life, and when you know that you don't have it because of the needs of your child in particular, then those everyday things become really precious, and I celebrate totally, really, really precious.
You talk about how you're working with these families, and it's just always worth flagging this for people. What sort of time span are people thinking? Because I would assume it's not 2 weeks job done. Just because anything that you're going to change something about our behaviour, in a sense, it's not going to be immediate. So I suppose for encouragement for people, how long perhaps before we can see something positive, and how long before that is then really that new change has become normal?
Yeah. I do see there are certain techniques that can change things overnight. So I think if I do talk about things, it's normally because it's the long term, which is like a year to 2 years. That's when things really start to establish and really settle. And folks who are dealing with this, whether that be teachers or parents or adults themselves, it becomes that second nature. Between 6 months to a year is when it's really starting to kick in. But boy, is there a flow when you get to those 2 years. But there are certain things as an encouragement that can change overnight, because you get those aha moments, and it's just like, so if you stop doing certain things, then you can get an immediate response. And then we have 2-week treatments, which are really powerful. They're very time absorbing, but we can get change within 2 weeks. But normally for the program, because of the way that I work, being much more of an equipping and empowering, then the 6 months to a year that's a nice time scale. But by 2 years, folks certainly should be flying. But then also needs change. So it is nice. I'm really glad that I can be there to stay with families if they want to, stay with individuals if they want to stay longer, and just see through the various transitions that we all go through, regardless of if it's from 3 till 5 age, or if it's going over to secondary school, or if it's going those teen years, or if it's transitioning out to adulthood, if it's transitioning into marriage and what marriage can bring, and the stresses and strains and the sensory impacts of actually committing to somebody else. And then you've got children. So I work with some of the adults who are in more the mental health side of things, because they are now needing to care for children. Mums who are trying to breastfeed, but they have really tricky tactile responses. So it's like, how do we make that work for them? So just working with them and supporting them through that. Littlies that really can't understand the mum's sensory needs are important, but they're just babies, so they can't change. So we have to change everything else to help the mums cope.
I think what I hear every time I speak to you, one, I'm always bowled over by just how far and wide you can help people from. And we talked about babies in the womb. We've talked about somebody who had recovered from brain cancer and was struggling with memory issues. And it's like, this is really every single possible age and stage of life. And yet I'm always just amazed by when you just sort of say these things that are normal to you. I'm thinking, that is so cool that you can help that person as well.
I think that's why I love life. It's kind of like, this is my calling. This is like what I love to do. And when I see it, and like with every stage, and having the opportunity to be able to speak into those as well, because I also mentor other occupational therapists, and they're in different parts of the world as well. So I get to hear their lives, and then I help them to reflect and actually expand, where they've been at, to, and their experiences. So I'm speaking into their life as much as, as their practice. And I just hear lots of things that are going on, as well as, thankfully I'm able to, work with lots of different types of people. And I just love it. I do.
Fabulous. It's encouraging. I know that's what I get. The comments that come in as we play these, out on the air, but it's people are saying, this is so lovely, this is so encouraging, or it's that sort of a thing. And I think so often in life we think there's no hope. We have, we can deal with all these things. Like you talk about normal, what's normal? Well, my normal is different to the next person's normal, but we think that their normal is the normal for everybody. And actually it doesn't work that way. And part, I think, of maturing in life is realizing, do you know what? We've all got our own normal. We've all got our own abnormal, actually. And we're all different.
Yeah. And I think because the comparison is huge. I do think that's one of the biggest things that I keep coming back to. And sometimes I think, do I say it too much? Or sometimes I think, do I even say it enough? That your life is your life. And like trying to, the life that you expect, or the life that you hoped you'd live, if it's not matched with the reality of your life, there's a lot of mindset shift that needs to happen in order for contentment. There's a lot of people who are pretty, or who can live just really either not hopeful or not happy, not content, because they're not able to make the most of the life that they have. So it's, how can I help people accept and love where they are at to begin with, but also then give them hope for the future, because lots of things can change. But I think it's better to be in a place of contentment with learn how to be content in the situation that they find themselves first, and then build on the hope from there.
Yeah, which would make sense. If we're not happy with if we're not happy with where we're at, and we can't accept where we are at now, how are we ever going to try and move forward? Because any foundations we then build are built on air almost, and it does start with that. This is where I am now, and if I want to get from point A to B, I can't start at point F, because that's like, I do think this gets a bit crazy, doesn't it? I don't think that's just my cold talking. It does make sense. Right, I'm gonna have a quick cough. So thank you. So one of the things that I know you do is you help churches, and also by extension that's going to help anybody who's got any kind of gathering of people. Just give us a quick reminder about the work that you do for churches in particular, and by extension others from the back of that you can help them to engage with people who are coming to them to spend time with them.
Yeah, actually, that is a really good point, because I've had 2 feedbacks this week. So Sensory Healthy Church, so laurjackson.com/church is where you can get the actual program. It's a 3-hour video program with me explaining all about sensory needs. There's an audit, there's a questionnaire, how to help leaders talk to members, members talk to leaders, just to try and improve communication. But yeah, this week I had 2. One really, really positive, saying that finally I'm able to go to church. One of the sensory super parents that's been in my system, she came into the system around lockdown. She's been learning all about her sensory needs, has started setting up with friends in her own church. And so she messaged me this week and said, one of the mums is just delighted she can come to church, because we have something where she feels her child is accommodated and loved, and that she feels valued. So it's just like, yes. However, the other one this week was saying that she was asking me whether I should stop taking her daughter to church, because it is just so stressful. And I think the point being, for this child, everybody seems to be aware or is becoming aware of the ones that are sensory overreactive. They're really sensitive to sensory input. So they have these quiet rooms, which are great. However, there are loads of different types of sensory processing. So if your child does not need the bubble tubes and the calming down and the soft music and the weighted blankets and things like that, we need to have sensory facilities for those who need physical input. And that's a lot of that is described in the Sensory Healthy Church program, that we need to be catering for those who are oversensitive and for those who need movement and activity to be able to focus, to be able to concentrate, to help them stay in a good and happy place. And the church that this family were going to had some sensory stuff, which was, totally commendable and really pleased, but it wasn't meeting that particular child's needs because they're not sensory overreactive, or that's not their biggest thing. They need activity. And there was there just wasn't anywhere to be able to accommodate that at the moment. So I'm hoping that they will connect, or that the church will connect, because it's a free Zoom once a month. It's just totally available. There's a Facebook group, Christian Sensory Support Facebook group. So the link always goes in there if anybody just wants to come in and either chat about church issues and see how the members themselves can speak to churches, or get any of your leaders, if they're happy, just come and say hello. Hopefully I'm not a scary person to come and talk to. I really do just want to help and support. And there's really no judgment, because every church is different. Every situation is different. We just need to find what works for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we believe that we're all made by God, and He makes us uniquely. One of the things that I always say is He makes us uniquely on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. And I think that's true. And all we're doing with the sensory issues, whether they're going to be overreactive or underreactive, saying, look, we're all made unique and different. We're all part of this family. And actually, the better we can get on, the better society will be. And having a moment to think, how can I work with this person better? I remember you said you had one of the guys that was coming in to move from stuff. I think he said, was it maybe I'm autistic? And then you were able to respond differently. And that's all we're talking about, is that communication that shows that we actually value other people.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much to change things either, but you don't know what you can change, or you don't know what you might be able to change unless you talk about it and get some ideas from someone else who might have done something. But it's also not just about ideas, but it is actually finding that match, getting those sensory needs, getting aware of them, and being able to define them so that you can then communicate it to other people. Because that's another family this week was just really struggling to know, how can they communicate this to school when school are thinking that they're just like every other child, and the parents are saying they are just not like every other child. There are different things that need to be put in place, because they get the backlash when they come back from school, and that they're not functioning great in school, but they're coping well enough, as it seems to be, from the school's perspective. And I do get it, but it's, as I was just saying, to that, be very, very specific, really, really specific with the things that will make a difference to him, so that he can do better at school. Because we did find things that, if they communicated those specifics, that then if the school were prepared to take it on, then that would really help him.
Just remind us of your website, where people can get all the different places. It's a launch pad, really, isn't it, your website now?
Yeah, it's really, because there's loads of different resources. There's free resources, there's resources with donations, there's different types of branches, but all essentially coming down to having a sensory super system to equip and to train and to work alongside whoever, children, adults, obviously working with the parents, adults, older people, teachers, carers, professionals, anybody. So AnneLaureJackson.com, ANNELAURE and Jackson.com.
Fabulous. Thank you, Anne, as ever. I'm looking forward to the comments that will be coming in, because they always do, about how encouraged people are. So thank you once again for joining us here.
Oh, and thank you. And I hope you get better soon, really better.
Yeah, me too, because I want the cold to go. I feel better. My voice, not so great, but it's fine. If you've got any questions for Laure Jackson for me to ask on your behalf, just email us here, hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org, and I'll ask them to Anne, and you can make them as anonymous as you wish. Thank you, Anne. Have a great rest of your day.
That's great. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Pure 24/7 Radio is listener supported, which means we are free, online and always pure because of the generous support of our listeners. If you would like to contribute financially, please visit pure247radio.org. If you'd like to find out how we use your money, please visit the Our Cost section. Any donation of any size will help keep us on air and broadcasting for free. Thank you.